What's up, Blue Jays Hub? It's your boy AJ LaMaestro. And folks, I don't even know where to start with this one because MLB is about to hate what the Jays are doing right now. We just crossed 3,000 subscribers on this channel, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, this means everything. But we are not stopping there. We are chasing 4,000 next. And if you are new here, if you just stumbled onto this video because the algorithm finally did something right, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now because I promise you, you are not going to want to miss what is happening with this baseball team. Because, folks, this is not a fluke anymore. This is not a let's get excited for one series and then watch it fall apart situation. The Jays just took 3 out of 4 from the Red Sox. They have a real shot at the sweep today, and they are handing Boston what would be their 6th or 7th straight loss, depending on how today shakes out. And in my personal opinion, there is something happening in that clubhouse right now that goes beyond just the bats got hot for a week. I want to walk you through exactly what's going on because between the pitching, the bullpen additions, the schedule that's about to open up in front of them, and some comments straight from the manager's mouth, I think this team is genuinely peaking at the exact right moment. Let's start with where they actually sit because I need you to understand how wild this is. As of right now, the Jays are somewhere in the range of a game and a half to 2 games back of a playoff spot, and that number could shrink even further depending on what Texas does today. A game and a half. After the year this team has had, after the injuries, after the underperformance, after everything that has gone wrong, they're a game and a half away from playoff position. I don't care who you are as a fan, that should have you sitting up straight right now. And look, I made sure not to say MLB will hate what the Jays are about to do until I actually had the receipts to back it up. I know some of you in the comments love to clown me for that line, and hey, that's fair. I get it. I lean into the drama. That's the whole point of this channel. But I waited. I waited until they strung together real wins against a real opponent before I broke that phrase back out. So give me a little credit down in the comments this time because this team has genuinely turned a corner. And there are articles floating around right now. I saw one that I'm still trying to track back down that named the Blue Jays as one of the sleeper teams nobody wants to see in October. That's not me talking. That's outside voices starting to notice what's happening in Toronto. So why is that? In my personal opinion, it comes down to two things. The rotation is legitimately playoff caliber right now, and the offense, even when it's not exactly mashing the ball all over the yard, is finding ways to come through in big spots. Let's talk pitching first because this is where I think the story really lives. You got Jose Soriano, who's essentially stepped into a huge role in this rotation, and yesterday he was flat out dominant in his home outing. Not quite as electric as the outing he had against the Jays back when he was still an Angel, but come on. 5 strong innings, 4 strikeouts, ultimately stretching it out to 6 innings, and just a single run allowed. That is exactly the kind of start you need from a guy who's being asked to carry weight in a playoff push. And I want to see a lot more of that from him going forward because if he keeps pitching like that, he's going to be a name Jays fans are talking about for years. Now, I won't sit here and pretend everything is perfect on the pitching staff because it's not. Losing Chris Sale and Trey Savage, quote unquote, the Savage, as I keep hearing him called around the clubhouse, from that rotation absolutely stings. Those are real losses, but look at what they still have. You got Dylan Cease, you've got Soriano, you've got Max Scherzer, who's out there today looking to build off a solid previous start. You've got Shane Bieber, who I'll get to in a second because his next start is a massive swing game. This is not a rotation that's running on fumes. This is a rotation that, on paper, should scare people in October. And according to reporting circulating around the league, that's exactly the sentiment other front offices are starting to share. And it's not just about the arms. It's about the fact that this offense is finding a way, even on nights where they are not exactly torching the baseball. They're not hitting the cover off the ball right now. I want to be honest with you guys. This isn't a lineup running on all cylinders and mashing 15 hits a game, but they are getting the timely clutch hits when it matters. Guys like Miles Straw are stepping up and contributing in ways that maybe weren't expected earlier in the year. And to me, that's actually more impressive than a lineup that just bashes its way to wins because clutch hitting, timely hitting, that's the stuff that wins you playoff series. That's the stuff that separates teams in October. Now, here's where I really want to give this team credit. And this is where John Schneider's comments come into play because I think they tell you everything about the mentality in that clubhouse right now. Schneider came out and said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the bounces are finally starting to go their way. That maybe after about 10 months of getting hammered by bad luck, The baseball gods are finally changing their mind about this team. And in my personal opinion, that quote is one of the most honest things a manager has said all season because it acknowledges two things at once. It acknowledges that, yeah, a lot of the blame for this team's struggles this year has to fall on underperformance, on guys not hitting the way they were supposed to hit, on things just not clicking the way the front office hoped. But it also acknowledges that this team has been legitimately snake bitten with injuries and bad luck in a way that's almost hard to put into words. We saw a small example of it yesterday, a pop fly that dropped in off the bat of Wilson Contreras that maybe doesn't fall in during a normal season, but is falling in right now because the vibes, the momentum, whatever you want to call it, is fully on this team's side. And folks, I don't want to get too deep into the vibes talk because obviously talent and execution matter more than luck at the end of the day. But you cannot deny that momentum is a real thing in this sport. And right now, the Toronto Blue Jays have it in a way they have not had it all season long. I do want to be careful here, though, because I promised you guys I'd give you the real, no filter breakdown and not just hype for the sake of hype. This team is not out of the woods. They are heading into an absolutely brutal stretch of the schedule, starting basically right after this Red Sox series wraps up. They've got the Yankees coming to the Rogers Center next. And yes, that lines up as a really nasty pitching matchup. Reportedly, Garrett Cole going up against Shane Bieber. And while it's true the Yankees are banged up without Aaron Judge and without Giancarlo Stanton, let's not pretend they're some pushover club. They are still the Yankees. They still have a deep, talented roster, even without their two biggest bats. Thankfully, there's an off day worked into the schedule right after the Red Sox series, which gives this pitching staff a much needed breather, but then it's right back into it with the Rays and then another matchup with the Yankees. So, in my personal opinion, this next stretch is really the true test. Anybody can get hot against a fading Red Sox team. Beating the Yankees and holding your ground against a divisional rival like Tampa is a completely different animal. And that's where we're going to find out if this is a real playoff caliber club or just a nice hot streak that fizzles out under pressure. But here's the thing that has me legitimately excited. And I need you all to pay attention this part because I think this is the most important storyline of the entire back half of the season. Once you get through this brutal Yankees-Rays gauntlet, the schedule genuinely opens up in a massive way. I went back and looked at the numbers, and as of the time of this recording, the Jays' remaining opponents are sitting at something like a combined .458 winning percentage over their final stretch of games. None of those remaining opponents currently have a winning record. You've got 9 total games against the Kansas City Royals and the Athletics combined. You've got the Guardians, who are hovering right around or under .500. You've got the Royals under .500, the Athletics under .500, the Orioles under .500, even the Rangers, a team the Jays are chasing directly for that wild card spot, are a team they get to control the outcome against head-to-head in a big upcoming series. The Reds are under .5002, and that carries all the way into the final stretch of the season. Now look, I made a comment in a previous video about this being one of the easiest schedules in MLB, and I want to walk that back slightly because a couple of you rightfully called me out on it in the comments, and I appreciate that. That's what this community is for, keeping me honest. It's not necessarily the single easiest schedule in the entire league, but on paper, in terms of the opponents they're about to face down the stretch, it is about as favorable a final month as you could realistically draw up for a team fighting for a playoff spot. The caveat, and I want to be real with you guys about this, is that the Jays actually had a pretty soft schedule earlier in the season too, back in that opening stretch, and they still found ways to underperform and struggle during that window. So an easy schedule alone does not guarantee anything. Talent still has to show up. Execution still has to show up. But when you combine a favorable schedule with a rotation that's rounding into form and a lineup that's finding ways to win close games, I like where this is trending. Let's pivot to the bullpen for a second because there's a lot happening here too, and some of it is really encouraging, while some of it comes with a bit of caution. The biggest story is the addition of reliever Paul Sewald off waivers. According to reporting, Arizona designated him for assignment, and from there it turned into a bit of a bidding scramble around the league, with reports suggesting the Yankees were also engaged in trying to work out a deal to acquire him before Toronto ultimately snagged him. That tells you something. When a division rival like the Yankees is actively trying to get a guy and your front office beats them to it, that's a sign your front office believes in the value here. And in my personal opinion, this front office has earned some trust after the moves they made at the deadline. Why does everybody want this guy? Because he's got legitimately unique stuff. He's got that rising fastball look out of a funky, deceptive arm slot that makes him a nightmare matchup in high leverage innings. Now, I'll be straight with you. I dug into some of the advanced numbers on him, and there's a little bit of a weird split, some metrics that don't fully match the eye test. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's a guaranteed lockdown arm from day one. But the raw stuff is real. And if the Jays pitching development staff can tinker with him even a little bit, this has the makings of a genuine difference maker in October. He's expected to report to the team ahead of the Yankees series, and I'll be watching that debut very, very closely. On the flip side, the bullpen has taken some hits from a workload standpoint, and that's a real concern heading into this brutal upcoming stretch. There was a situation in the last game where the pen got stretched thin enough that a reliever had to be brought in for what amounted to basically a token, 5 pitch appearance just to get through the moment. That's the kind of thing that looks fine in the box score, but tells you the relief corps is running on fumes a little bit after such a heavy workload during this stretch of games. Realistically, that means some of these arms are probably not available for a third straight day, which could be a real issue if today's game against the Red Sox turns into a bullpen game. Outside of that fatigue concern, though, the bullpen as a whole has remained genuinely dominant, and that's a huge reason this team has been able to hang on to these close type ball games. Then there's the rotation depth question, which honestly might be the single biggest swing factor for the rest of this season. With injuries to key starters, there is real uncertainty about who fills out the back of this rotation. Names being floated include some internal options as well as speculation about the Jays potentially looking outside the organization to add veteran pitching depths before rosters lock in for the stretch run. I want to stress some of that is still speculative and developing, so take it with the appropriate grain of salt until we get official confirmation. But if the front office does go out and add another arm, that would be yet another signal that this organization believes they are legitimately playing for something real down the stretch, not just playing out the string. Now let's talk about today specifically, because Max Scherzer is on the mound looking to build off a solid recent outing. And honestly, at this point in the season, in my personal opinion, this team is playing with house money. Think about where they were. Think about the injuries. Think about the 6 game losing streak earlier this year. Think about how far back they were in the standings at one point. And now here they are, a game and a half back with a real chance to sweep a divisional opponent and enter this brutal upcoming stretch with all the momentum in the world. Win or lose today, this is not a loser's mentality situation. You take 3 out of 4 from Boston, you set yourself up beautifully heading into the Yankee series, and you do it all while dealing with a beat up pitching staff and a bullpen that's been asked to do a lot of heavy lifting. I keep coming back to this Schneider quote because I think it really is the defining line of this entire stretch of the season. The bounces are finally going their way after essentially a full calendar year of getting pounded by the baseball gods. Bad injuries, bad luck, bad timing, something has shifted. Maybe it's confidence, maybe it's just a hot stretch that regresses eventually. And hey, that's a fair, reasonable thing to bring up too, because baseball is a game of small sample sizes, and hot streaks can absolutely cool off just as fast as they heat up. But I don't think what we're seeing right now is purely luck. I think this is a team that's finally getting some health, finally getting some quality innings out of new additions, finally getting some of that unluckiness to even out, and combining it with real talent that was always supposed to be here. So here is where I land on all of this. The next stretch of games against the Yankees and the Rays is the true measuring stick. If they can stay afloat there, stay within 3 or 4 games of a playoff spot, heading into that dramatically softer closing schedule, I genuinely believe this team makes the playoffs. And once you're in October, with a rotation that looks like this, with a bullpen that's adding pieces like Seawald, with an offense that's finding ways to win close games, even when it's not clicking on all cylinders, that's the kind of team that makes a real run. That's the kind of team other front offices are already whispering about as the club nobody wants to see in the wild card round. I want to know what you guys think, though, because this channel only works because of this community going back and forth in the comments. Do you believe this is real, sustainable baseball, or do you think the Jays are riding a hot streak that's about to come crashing back down to earth the second they run into a real gauntlet like the Yankees and Rays? Drop your predictions down below. Tell me who you think starts that 4th spot in the rotation. Tell me if you trust Paul Sewald to be a real difference maker in high leverage innings once he gets some reps in. I read every single comment, and honestly, some of the best storylines on this channel have come directly from you guys calling me out or pointing me towards something I missed. So keep that energy going. Before I let you go, I need you to do three things for me. First, if you are not subscribed yet, get us to that 4,000 subscriber mark. We just hit 3,000, and I want to keep this momentum rolling every bit as much as I want the Jays to keep theirs rolling. Second, smash that like button because it genuinely helps this channel get in front of more Jays fans who need this no filter breakdown in their life. And third, get down in that comment section and let me know your thoughts, your predictions, your hot takes, all of it. This is AJ LaMaestro signing off from Blue Jays Hub. Win or lose today, folks, this is a hell of a time to be a Toronto Blue Jays fan. And I will see you in the next one.